Hey everyone, welcome to the Christopher Yu podcast. This is a podcast about all things cultural, food, media, sports, video games, and the artistic struggle. Let's make the ordinary extraordinary. So come on in. Just don't forget to take your shoes off. And today we have a super special, super awesome, super cool guest. I have this laundry list of guests that I have, and she is literally the second name there. Not that it's in any order of importance, but obviously I wrote her name second. The first name is Eddie Huang, who is the author of Fresh Off the Boat. So, the fact that she's second after Eddie Huang is a big deal because I love Eddie as a fellow Taiwanese man. But anyways, this person is a poet. She's a writer. She's also a student who's pursuing her master's in psychology. She is the author of Birthday Girl from Not a Cult Media. She's an overall phenomenal human being. Sheila Sadr, everyone. Woo!
Hi. Thanks for having me. Oh, this is so cool.
Thank you.
Cool. That was a really nice intro. Usually someone will like read the whole bio and it like just feels like someone's singing happy birthday to you. You're just sitting there really shy. So I appreciate like the kind of abridged short version of it.
Yeah. Right. I'm glad. I've been working on them. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask you this before we hit recording. How do you pronounce your last name? I hope I didn't.
It's like the way I like tell honestly just white people is Sadr.
Right.
But it's technically Sadr, but no one can say it. So I'm just like Sadr is fine. You said it fine. Like you really did.
I said it the Anglo way, which is
yes. It's fine.
That'll do for now.
I'm like I hit that boat where like I'm over people trying to pronounce it. I'm just over it. I just like there's other stuff in the conversation that needs to happen.
It's more important things we got to get to.
Yeah, I'm trying to get business done here.
yeah. Hey, come on, sign the paperwork here, people. So, if I may start first, so if you're listening to this podcast or watching this recording on my YouTube, and you're like, who is Sheila besides this? What I said before. So, before we hit record, we were trying to figure out how long we've actually known each other, and I think we've settled on 8 years, which is mind blown. Just absolutely insane. We met at an open mic based out of Long Beach. Shout out to the Definitive Soapbox family and everyone there. And, I got there early. I was there with some friends. And actually, the friends that I went with live in Long Beach now, which is really cool. Wow. Yeah. Like recently. So it's funny that they ended up there. But anyways, so, I signed up. I was like, I'm finally gonna do this because I had been writing on and off for a while. And Sheila was there and she performed, and there were some other people, but I really remember Sheila. and we also got to talk. I mean, everyone kind of talked afterwards, and the community and the family is so wonderful there, and everyone's so nice and encouraging, and you know what I mean? If they thought in their head, man, these kids suck, you would never have known, because they were also, you know what I mean? Like they're also like wonderful and nice and authentic. Like you felt that, But anyways, I more or less, that's when I became a Sheila fan, a Sheila stan, if you will, and
gosh,
following her on, Instagram and all that stuff throughout all the cool things that you've done.
Oh my gosh.
And we finally have this platform where we can actually like talk about we can actually chat, and
I can't believe you remember like that first time that we like engaged, because I just remember like seeing your face and then you performing and then talking to you after, but I don't remember anything outside of that. And I know you came back one more time after, if I remember correctly. And the first time I went there was the first time that I met you.
Yeah. Same. I don't know if I went back. I don't think I did. Because
you went twice, and you were wearing like the first time you were wearing a suit.
Dude, that jacket, oh man, I think I have it still. It's this jacket. it's this like sports coat I bought at like a Goodwill somewhere, and it was like soft. It was like not like velvet, but it was super cool. And it's
You're like, you take a moment and you're like, it was soft.
yeah, it was soft
It was real soft.
with like a lowercase s, but like italicized. You know what I mean?
Oh, it was super. Yeah, it was
Soft
soft.
is like Naruto running, if you will. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was good.
I can tell it was important to you. But no, I remember that. I remember you dressed up and then we like followed each other. And then I've been following you since. I've seen all like the creative arcs and stuff, and it's been really cool.
Yeah.
There was a point, and correct me if I'm wrong, you got into Buddhism.
Yes, that's right. So I was born into this practice. I practiced with this organization. My mom joined when she was pregnant with me. She joined because her parents, my grandparents in Taiwan, introduced her to it. And so it's this Buddhist organization called the Soka Gakkai International. It started in Japan, but it's international now.
Yeah,
my grandparents, so my grandparents joined, and I grew up in the practice, but like stopped when I went to college because I was busy and stuff like that. I still practiced to some degree, but wasn't like really active. But when I kind of like took time away from school and just started working, then I started practicing more and started like sharing about that. That was, I think, like 2016, which is crazy to think that we've known each other longer than kind of that part of my life. You know what I mean? Like
we met, I think, I want to say 2014 or 2013.
That's nuts. I hope it's 2014, because 2013 seems like literally impossible for some reason. Like I just can't wrap my head.
The reason I know that is I graduated high school in 2013 and then started college in 2013. And I know that we met like fall 2013.
Yeah. Nuts.
I know it's weird that like it's you're just like such an instrumental part of like that beginning period of Definitive for me. And so like I very distinctly remember you.
Wow. That is
and then like I was able to like follow you like through many life things that just happened, and also just like I saw you get into Buddhism, and I just like it was like I saw, well, you've also seen me through relationships. I've seen you through relationships.
Right.
Like I think like it's just I didn't want to bring it up, but I was also like I feel like that kinship with you.
Yeah.
Like,
you're just like scrolling. You're like, new person. Word. Hope they're doing well.
and then it's like, okay, breakup.
Yeah. Okay, it's been about a year, 2 years. Okay, cool. Moving on.
Yeah, no, that's like I just very distinctly like I just feel kinship with you in that, because you definitely saw me through heartbreak.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Very very often you don't hear how the successes of social media in this way to like maintain that connection. I mean, of course it was, the Definitive Soapbox like platform and like the poetry community that allowed, you and I to meet. And then, like you said, right, you kind of jazz with one another because you're like, oh, okay, this person is another creative person that is trying to, in like my opinion, I have this like perception of you where, you want to have not like a big voice, but an influential voice. But I think you also seem to make an effort to stay like very rooted and grounded and like humble, whether it's with like your family or your, fiance. Congratulations, by the way. Yeah.
Engaged.
Yeah.
Betrothed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I have this, that's my like perception of like who you are. And I feel, if that is correct, I feel the same way of like, this is the type of influence like I want to create, where it's more, anyways. Yeah. But is that accurate?
I appreciate yeah, I appreciate that, where it's like, yeah, I definitely want to make an impact, but also I'm kind of, I don't know if this is like a fair thing to say, but I kind of don't like selling my identity or
Exactly.
packaging, oh my God, packaging it to like the world, which is something like you kind of, when you start doing it, you start realize what does well.
Mm.
And then it's kind of like weird because you feel like you're selling it and it's such a precious thing to you. So it feels weird to sell. So yeah, and I really like to I remember social media being a place where you just shared cool little bits of your life and it wasn't like a Craigslist. so
Right, right.
so like I just really appreciate that element of it. Like I just want people to remember these are just bits of my life. I like them. I've always like enjoyed that. And it's only recently that, I made like the commitment to kind of transition into something more public or influential in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because excuse me. Thank you for sharing that. I 100% like resonate with that, and I think that's what I am trying to do as well. And so, I have friends that I really look up to for how they present themselves on social media, because I feel like they're as close as they can. The version of themselves that they present on social media is as close as, if we met like and talked in like person. It's like the same version.
Yeah.
My last guest, Allison Parker, she's a musical theater actress and personal trainer, and we've known each other through college but didn't really talk. But when she started kind of promoting her like fitness, she's certified personal trainer and she wants to market herself. But I think she did instill a way that was still like Allison. I was like, we got to talk about that, you know what I mean, and how like dope that is, because not enough people do that. So yeah, I really
It's
got to
also
say, yeah.
it also, sorry to interrupt, it
No,
also
it's
just
fine.
takes a lot of work to maintain. And there was like a certain point where, and maybe this isn't fair to say, but to me, I was like looking and I was like, I am spending so much time doing this thing that isn't isn't fulfilling
Mm.
either financially or emotionally or spiritually. It's just making me anxious. And so like I was just like I hit a point where, and I'm hitting that point. Like it's also just my relationship with social media has always changed. Like I
Mm.
once had like a really healthy relationship. I had really unhealthy relationship with it. Like, and now I'm at that point where I'm just like, okay, I know that I have to be this thing, or not have to, but I'm choosing to be this thing. How can I do it authentically for myself? And
Yeah.
how can I also value my boundaries? Because, like, I don't necessarily want to talk about being queer on Instagram. It's just not my thing. It's not for me. And that's mainly because it's maintaining privacy, it's respecting my family. It's, for me, it's a self of like protection. And but then you also feel this like parasocial kind of shame that you're not out to the world, which is a whole thing in and of itself. So I feel like for me, I just like was looking at it and I was like, what is this truly benefiting me? And if it's not benefiting me like spiritually or socially, and it's not benefiting me financially, then I'm just like, all right, well, how can I either like make it work for me, or maybe I need to take a break,
Mm.
which is like something that I think because I'm like promoting the workshop, it feels a little different, like because promoting the workshop, you have to be out there, you have to put yourself out there, you have to sell yourself. And oh, I loathed it. I loathe it. It's just, I don't know if anyone can tell on my social media how much like I hate doing it, I hate selling myself, because it's frightening, because you get numbers back, you see what actually is impacting. And that's deeply unpleasant. No time ever in the history of the world can you actually like numerically find out how many people engage with who you are on the internet until now. So
Mm.
it's definitely like I think I have like a little bit of a more skeptical relationship with it now, which probably is an indicator for me that I can't put as much stock in it at the time. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have like a lot of hot takes about social media.
No, that's great. I think that's that's absolutely, correct. You brought up your workshop, and I love to talk about it. Could you quickly introduce, it doesn't have to be quickly, I don't know why I said quickly, but anyways, please introduce your workshop, and I'd love to know like how it came along, and
no, I'll say it real speedy. No, so the workshop is called Khoshgel, good earth, because Khoshgel in Farsi means beautiful, but also in like breaking down the translation, Khosh means happy, gel means dirt or earth. So it's a good earth, happy earth workshop. And essentially the reason it kind of came about, and it'll kind of explain it in the process, was I was working for a nonprofit. I'm still kind of working for them. It's Get Lit, where I was teaching a drop-in class, which essentially means that there's new students who come in every week, or there's some continuing. And in that process, it's a really fruitful. Some kids stick around, some kids don't. Whoever wants to come in can come in. But what ends up happening is you can't really track their progress or curate like a path for them. And so what ends up happening is you're basically doing like beginner level stuff, beginner to intermediate level stuff for like a year. Just so like I have like 40 some workshops that are just one-off beginner level workshops. And I was kind of hitting this point where I was like, I really want to stick with one group of people for a little bit longer and track it. And also I was curious about, I did this one workshop presentation with the more advanced group, because we have an advanced group at Get Lit called the Get Lit Players. And I did a workshop about mental health and poetry in the poetry community, because it's deeply affected me, and I've seen it deeply affect a lot of people in the open mic scene and poets in general, and leave kind of an impact. And I saw that there was no kind of psychoeducation happening around that. And so I developed a workshop around it, and it was really fruitful. It created like really amazing conversations with these kids in a way that like I think they've never really thought about. And it really inspired me to develop a workshop series, so cumulative, around a poet's relationship or a writer's relationship with their work and their community at large. So it's basically focusing on establishing a poet's relationship with their art, because for me, that was integral to what I would say my success has been so far. Just establishing what my relationship to my work is, and kind of making peace with that. Because when you say to yourself, oh, I'm a poet, this is my job, oh, my job is a writer, like that's what I want to be. Oh man, like you're gonna be broke. Like, oh man, you're gonna have to do so many things, and you have to explain that to people and explain that to your family. And what ends up happening is, you have to make peace with that in a way, if that's what you choose to do. And it was also a big important element of managing my expectations. And so establishing their relationship with their work is really important, because not everyone wants to be a career writer, right? Not everyone wants to do that. And everyone understands, like, if you choose to be a writer, it's not always romantic. It's hard, it's stressful, it's anxiety inducing. And so establishing that relationship. And then another element of the workshop is basically creating a community project in service to the community through poetry. So we're going to be brainstorming with the people who've signed up so far. We're going to be brainstorming together a way to serve the community using our work and our art and our voice. And I think it's just important, because we think that writing is such like a solitary individual thing. And if I've learned anything, like, everyone's success is when they help others. Like, when you're helping others, when you're in service to others, when you know that you're connected to your community, that has been where I have made the most connections, made the most success, made the biggest steps in my career, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's a 5-week workshop. We meet twice a week, and we are just charting that. So it feels like it might be like a poetry writing workshop, but it's not really. It's kind of like a weird alternative. I don't know if that explained it, but
that was great. Absolutely.
It was a long-winded way, but I think all of those elements are very important to explain how I got there and why it's happening.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think as we've had guests on this podcast and we're, talking about their, what they do in their kind of field or passion or hobby or what have you. What really stands out is there's always a clear why behind what they do. And for me, I think personally that's the most inspiring thing, because as, air quotes here, creatives, right? Our why, WHY, seems to, always need to develop and grow and change, because whatever that like lit that fire, years ago just may not cut it now, right? But we still have this like desire and like passion, and we believe in whatever it is that we're doing. We believe in the power of it. We believe in the significance and the importance of it, but it's always that kind of why that needs to be, nurtured and taken care of. May I ask, like, we haven't done like what's your origin story, so maybe we should cover some of that. Like, how did you, get started into basically like the Sheila in like 2021? How did you get here, starting from wherever you feel is.
Oh man, like career-wise, I feel I like the story that I tell is that I was writing, it was in 8th grade. It's so lame, but we were going like through 8th grade promotion where they like promote you from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Right.
And they were looking for, and I was like really, I always like with endings, I get really existentially distressed ever since like I was younger. If like I was graduating high school, I was existentially distressed. College, I'm currently watching the Avatar, The Last Airbender. And I've rewatched it several times, but I can never watch the end because I get really existentially distressed. And in 8th grade, I was feeling really existentially distressed, and it was like this buzzing, and I like went in and I wrote a poem about aging, about growing up, and how the world tells us to grow up. And I like wrote that and I read it to my parents, and I didn't even know what I made, to be honest. Like I had no idea it was a poem. And then I read it at my 8th grade promotion on the stage, and like everyone thought that like, oh, someone else wrote it and she was just reading it. But no, it was mine and I wrote it, and it like won a contest. And then I kind of just fell in love with it. Like that's like the best way I could say it. I like fell in love with reading it. I fell in love with watching it. There was no like open mics in Orange County at the time, at least that I knew of. And so I just kind of grew up just watching button poetry and slam fine and things like that. And then when I finally went to an open mic when I was graduating high school, it was like this rinky-dink open mic that was just like a couple of guitarists playing and me. And then I found like Long Beach had a slam poetry team. And so I auditioned and I got in. And so that was kind of the origin story in a way. But I think the true, like I had been writing and I had been doing poetry for a long time, but it was like a hobby. It was like a side hustle. It was just something that I really loved to do creatively. And then I hit a point where I was like, oh, this is my job. Like, I was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing, because I had been writing scripts, I had been writing stories, I had been writing poems. I've been like a deeply creative person for a really long time. And then like I think it was in probably like 2-3 years ago, I was in Iceland with my mom, and we were in a car, and I like wrote in my journal, I was like, oh, I'm married to poetry. Like I defined my relationship. I was like, it's no longer this person I'm dating. It's no longer this like mistress or whatever. I'm married to this person. I'm married to poetry, and poetry's never going to go away no matter how hard I try. And every time I was trying to think of trying to be a lawyer, trying to be a psychologist, all these things, I was always worried poetry would go away. I was always worried that my writing or creativity would go. And just that kind of hit that point where I was just like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then with Not a Cult, I don't know if this is kind of, it's such a long story. It's like trying to say the story of your life in a way, but
Yeah.
But the last thing I'll say is I started like submitting my work to places. I just kind of like, no one really tells you how to do it. You kind of just do it on your own. You just pick up things on your own. So I just started submitting to places, and I saw Not a Cult was taking submissions to what I thought was just like a couple poems that they would publish, not knowing it was a book contest. And then I was a finalist, and I realized, oh, dang, I have to write a book in a month. And I was like, oh shit, I'm out of town when I'm doing this. But I tried really hard. I put a book together. And I realized I was pulling poems from like high school again. So I was like, oh, I started learning a lot from the process of making a book. I was like, oh, I need to write more. Oh, this book needs to have a story. Oh, this da 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 da. I ended up not winning it. But then the following year, I submitted again, and I was like, there's no way. Like, there's no way I'm going to be a finalist. Lightning doesn't strike twice. I was like, there's no way. And then I was a finalist again. And this time it wasn't like you submit a manuscript. I was already putting the book together before then. But I had an interview with my publisher, and he asked me like, why do you want this book, or what's the goal for this book? And I was like, whether or not you pick up this book, it's happening. Like, I was like, this book is happening, it's coming, you choose to be on this train or you don't. And apparently that's what really caught him, and I ended up winning. So that was really, really, really cool. And I think that was the point. That's how I've led up to this point. And I mean, I had so many plans to go on tour, to do all these things, to really like launch it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, God laughs at the plans you make. Like, so I never ended up going on tour. I went like on a mini virtual tour, but yeah, the book happened, and it happened during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's like a very long-winded story that went everywhere.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. It was also layered with like a lot of heartbreak, but
yes.
But I think it's good fodder for writing.
Right. Exactly. Wow. What are some of your like long-term goals as a poet and like as a writer? Like something like, if you live to the age of like 105, you know, and you're chilling there, you got the rocking chair, the blanket over your lap, nice hot cup of tea, you're thinking about your life, the things that like you've done. What are those things that you're like, hell yeah, I check that off, you know?
That's a really good, hard question. If you had asked me like 3 months ago, it'd be super different.
Wow.
Because I'm in a point in transition in my life where I'm shifting from what I had planned to, because I had planned to go get an MFA in Indiana. I planned to like uproot my whole life and go there and then become a professor and teach and come back to California and teach and do publishing and all that. But I got a ring on my finger, and that man has changed all my plans. How dare he?
Son of a gun.
I know. He's just trouble. But
and the worst part is he's just so handsome too.
He's beautiful. Don't get me started.
He's a good looking dude. I saw that and I was like, okay.
That's my like favorite. Is that like really strange to say? My favorite thing is when people tell me he's good looking. Like, I've had people hit on him in front of me, and it makes me deeply happy.
That's really funny. That's really great. Yeah, he could definitely sell me some cologne, and I'd be like, yeah.
The other day I was looking at. Thank you. I love talking about him. The other day I was like looking at him, and I was like, have you ever thought about modeling?
Yeah. He has this
he's
like
really tall too.
He looks really tall.
He's tall. He's like 6'1" or something. 6'2".
Oh, my type of guy. Eye to eye.
Thank you for bringing him up. I love talking about him. I'm so gay for him. I love him so much. Yeah. But yeah, he like when we were dating, he knew that was my dream. But you know, I saw his dream too. and his dream is very much, you see someone who like studies for an interview, puts like all his hours and times of day to do this thing because he helps developmentally disabled adults, and it's just like his life passion. And the thought of stripping him away from that was just like not something I had the heart for, because the things that I love, like it's weird when like I want to write about this, and there's definitely going to be something that comes out when I start writing about it. But like there was something that very spiritually shifted for me, because when you're like dating someone, it's, I don't know, I could be wrong. For me, dating someone, I was like, well, no, I come first in this situation. Like if I'm going to Indiana and you don't agree, it's my thing. Like I'm going. And he like, and then you get engaged, and then that person's things that they care about become equal to yours. Like they matter just as much to you. And so when I saw his dreams, I was like, okay, like I really need to shift my perspective, because I can't take him away from this. So if I were to like look back when I was 105, I think right now, what I would really care about is that I taught and I wrote more books or articles and different genres. I think I would really have liked to do some really neat things with creativity. And I really want to open a bookstore. Like I think that would be really fun. I want to open something that helps the community around me, that helps uplift them. I really, really I hope like whatever creative thing I do helps people. Like that's kind of the big thing for me, helps people, but also in a more specific way connects people. I think that's something that's really important to me. So yeah, teaching, being creative, making cool shit, and like a bookstore.
Hell yeah.
And probably being a therapist at some point, since I'm in school, but that's like a side hustle.
Yeah. That's hilarious. What was it like for you, like growing up? Because your parents are immigrants, right? They came here.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was that?
It was I have a very like unique upbringing, in the sense that, well, like everybody does, but one my unique upbringing was my parents were family friends when they were kids in Iran, and then they had their own, and they loved each other then apparently, and then they kind of had their own lives, had kids, got married, they went through divorces, and then they very much reconnected in California, and I was their kid. And so I have siblings that are all in their 40s. Like, and then and I was like the kid of, I'm like a first generation Iranian American, and my parents are really, really like workaholics. Like they work a lot, which I think I really picked up on too. They work a lot, and then they also are extremely helpful people. So we had a lot of people coming in through the house when I was growing up, because they were helping people kind of get on their feet. And so there were times where like I was sleeping on a couch or in my parents' bed or on the floor by their bed while other people were staying here. So my parents are very giving, helpful, like hardworking people. And it was really, really good because it taught me a lot, but it was also really hard because I felt very lonely.
Yeah. Wow. Especially like being raised in Orange County, right? And that's basically where they make white people.
Yeah, that's where white people come from.
Yeah, right. They all come from this tree that just this
in Orange County.
Yeah. You know, in terms of like your, sense of identity, like culturally and like ethnically, how does that come around?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was really, really lucky in the sense that my parents put me in culture school really early on. So I learned Farsi, and I learned about the Muslim faith quite early on. And that's not something that a lot of Persians did, or not many of them did, because with the revolution, there was and like America's like hatred for Persians, there was a lot of internalized shame. I did feel that though. I felt a lot of internalized shame. Like I felt Yeah, I didn't feel quite good enough. I think there's like I looked up some studies, and self-esteem wise, Persians don't fare very well with self-esteem in America. Just they just don't.
Mm,
And it was definitely like really hard, and it was I don't know, I felt like an outcast a lot of the times. I felt pretty rejected just
mm,
because I was envious about like the big churches that were right by my house. And then my cultural center was an office building in Irvine, like just like a one office like section in Irvine. And so I felt really envious that like we didn't have these like big, nice facilities. I felt embarrassed about the food, which you hear a lot with different cultures, is like our food feels
right.
embarrassing. I never felt embarrassed about my last name. I never felt embarrassed about my parents, but I did hear people like, you know, be mean to my parents, be racist. A lot of the stuff that I took from Orange County was a lot of internalized um, shame about being growing up Muslim. Like that was something that because like it was, there's a huge, huge, huge a Christian community everywhere, but very much in Orange County.
Mm,
So that was a hard thing. And also in Orange County, where I went to school, is really wealthy,
mm.
extremely wealthy. Like one of the people I graduated with was, I don't know if you know the Fisker car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I graduated with his daughter.
Jesus
Like
Christ.
yeah. So and like I graduated with like the mayor's kid, and so it was very affluent, and that was also very different for me, I think. And
Wow.
that was like hard on me.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Thanks for sharing. How how has that man, I don't want to say the word inspired, but I guess I'll just say influence. How how have you personally taken that time, that influential time, right, and used it towards your what you do now, whether it's the writing, whether it's
Yeah.
the workshops, things like that? Because I think that's another thing about being a creative is that how do you take all this, like sometimes it's just baggage, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's your history, whatever, you know what I mean? But how do you, you know, more or less use this for good, use this to tell a story, use this to uplift, encourage others, to create a community? You know, how has
Yeah.
that been for you?
I think what it really has done is like it has given me a really, I mean, this sounds so stupid and privileged, but it's really open like a space in my heart where I have a lot of compassion and empathy and space for people who have felt outcasted
Mm,
or who have gone marginalized or uncared for, who have been neglected by the community. And then it's also fostered a deep disdain for the opposite. Like, so I think for me, so like it's hard to say, but transparently speaking, because like I grew up in like an affluent area, it's made me really open up those resources and reallocate those resources that I have to people who may not have access to certain things. So like for example with the workshop is a lot of labor, a lot of work, right? um and originally, and like I'm all about demystifying cost and charges and all these things. So originally it was at like a very flexible rate of $300 for like the whole thing, which is like a very reason, it's like that's what it would cost. But I'm not paying rent. I live with my parents. Like I'm very lucky where I don't have to pay rent, and so it to ask for that amount of money when it's not like necessarily a necessity for me,
mm,
it just didn't feel right. And so I brought like the rate down substantially by like a third. So now it's like $100, and it's still like the same workshop. It's still the same everything, because I think like that's me trying to like find ways to utilize the privilege that I have financially in the situation that I'm in, um just to like make it accessible for people who really want to do it and who really want to that access. And so for me, I don't talk about like I think it's harder to talk about the privilege that you do have than you don't. Because I can talk about being Iranian and being Muslim in Orange County, right? I can say how that's like influenced me, which it very much has. It's very much probably like the biggest force behind everything I do. But I think it's much harder to say, like, I live with my parents and I'm very lucky, like, I don't have to pay rent. And how does that influence how I move in the world and in my community with my craft? And what that means is, like, for me, and this has always been the case because it's just always been the case throughout my career, is like I choose to like give things more easily or for free. So like before then I was doing like donation based workshops where like I never charged anybody. I did that for like 9 months and it was really substantial. It was really like I learned a lot from it. And then I also like helped the community around me in Orange County for artists. So it has been a lot of that, because ultimately, like, when you're talking about accessibility, you're also talking about resources, you're talking about money, you're talking about things like that ultimately. When it comes to just like the experience of being Iranian American, that was like the impetus to me sharing my work on Instagram. The first time I ever shared my poems and stuff, I was really thinking about it. I was really meditating on it, and I just came to this thing where I was just like, Iranians live in a diaspora. We live in a diaspora where we are very deeply disconnected from each other in a way that is really hard to reconnect. And so for me, I really wanted to reach Iranians, Iranian Americans, my age and beyond, to reconnect with themselves and each other, to challenge that internalized shame that they have, as well as the way that they shame others because of it. So that was kind of the motivating element for me. And then as time has like continued, and my identity obviously is multifaceted as fuck, like, you know, I was just like, okay, like that's how I want to do. I want people of color who are queer to know who I am. I want people who are not Christian to know who I am. I want people who are non-binary to know who I am. So that it just became more. Or like, you know, I have a chronic disorder, so like expressing like disability rights as much as I can to my own knowledge, because I don't know everything, like to talk about that and to demystify that as well. So that it's kind of grown where I just want to keep reaching people and connecting with people.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's just so awesome.
It was a lot.
That was great. What advice or, you know, insight would you share to someone who, let's say like in the poetry scene, right? There's almost like not a clear path of like what you do. Like for my, you know, actor friends and things like that, it's all pretty much very, you know, laid out for you, right? You audition, you get work, you build a reel, you submit to agencies, hopefully find an agent, get a manager, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, there's some steps out there, right? Yeah. But for like writing, which I know is a very blanket term, and specifically poetry, it's like, you gotta, you know, like you laid it out so well. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, and I'm sure, having felt discouraged from that myself, that it will probably discourage like other people from like pursuing it, because it's like, man, now I have to work. Not only do I have to improve in the craft, of course, you know, in order to make a difference in that community and grow as an artist in that craft, but I also have to do this extra legwork to get myself there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who feels that way, who's maybe is like, you know, what do I do in order to really like build that, you know? And it not necessarily like, you know, asking for like practical things, but like you yourself as a person, right? When you're kind of like sitting in your room or whatever in your space, and you just essentially decide, right? There's this moment where you're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make it happen, right? Like how would you, you know, convey that like switch, you know what I mean, where it's like, I'm just gonna do it no matter what, and like I don't care what it takes, you know?
Yeah, so you're asking like, how would I give advice to someone who's kind of like tinkering with that idea?
Yeah, you know, or feel stuck, or
yeah, I mean, the advice, I mean, I think this is like a horrible, I don't think it's a horrible thing to say. I think it's a very reasonable thing to say. I think it's to be realistic. I think it's important to be realistic. Like, I personally, like I said, I very much established my relationship with writing, but I also was like, well, I can't put all my, like, being a writer is almost like being an entrepreneur in a sense, because you very much like have to chart your own path. There is not one way to be a writer. There really isn't. Like, for me, it worked this way. For someone else, it didn't. I know for like years, I was like looking at like screenwriters and looking at like where they came from and like how they got there. A lot of it's nepotism,
Right.
but like it is definitely like I found the path that worked for me, and that's like a very challenging thing when a lot of careers have like a charted path. It's very hard. But I also was realistic that I couldn't put all my marbles in one basket. I had to, do this and I had to do that. And I had to go get my master's in something and make sure that I was in a place where I I really tried. I'm really trying, because it's a continual negotiation of like whether it's worth it. Because I still think like that. I know people who have books that come out that are no longer, career poets, right? They're now, I think he's like, one of my friends is a computer engineer now. And like they're like some people, transition out after a while. For me, it was like I wanted a job that would give me the space and the opportunity to invest in my creativity. That was a big thing for me, which is why I got into teaching, which is also why I really liked psychology, which is why I like those kinds of fields that give me that space and that container to take care of those really obvious necessary elements of my life. Because once there's like because the way I like to describe it to people, and I know this is like very tangible, but it's all about being realistic. For me, that's something that really helped me, was like the tangible thing for me was like, is writing a hobby or a career for you? Because if it's a hobby for you, and I hate giving this advice to people because I feel like it's so harsh, but it was something that helped me. So if it doesn't help you or whoever's taking the advice, like that's fine. Everyone's brain works differently. But like for me, it's like if it's a career or if it's a hobby, you get to like, write, and it's fun and it's exciting and you get to go to open mics. But if you're expecting to make it big, there's a low chance. It's hard. You get really lucky. That might happen. You might get discovered. It might be really cool. Or if you're like submitting as a hobby and it just explodes, that's super cool. But it's like that's a much harder road, and that's not as possible. Where if you're choosing it as a career, it's a continual dedication. It's having writer's block more because like money is on the line for it. There's you get really self-conscious because maybe a social media post isn't going well. Like it's a job, so that means there are good days and then there are really bad days and all the in-betweens, and so and there is a higher perhaps likability that you'll get to where you want to go, but it's a long road. It's not an easy road. And so I like to really help people. I mean, I know those are two paths, but establishing that in my brain really helped me. And it also helped me really manage my expectations, because I'm never like on social media like, oh, this is always going well. Like, no, probably like 3/4 the time it's not going well in my brain, right? So like for me, it's all about like being realistic and kind of developing a strategy. Before, it was like, I just want to have my poems out in these publications that I'm wild about. Like that's what I wanted. I never thought about having a book. I got really lucky with the book thing. The book thing. I got really lucky with the book thing. But and now it's like, okay, I have this thing. What are my next goals? What are the next things I want to do? And then it's like an agent, a manager. Like I need those next steps now. And that's a whole learning curve. So it's like my biggest piece of advice, which is probably not the most hopeful, like hippie woo-woo thing in the world, has been managing my expectations, and I'm not good at it, but it has really helped me. It has really helped me, and I think it's like, if you are afraid, it's very reasonable to be afraid, but doing it anyways takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to put something out there and it only gets 20 likes. It's very courageous, or if it gets like 10 likes or 5, or like no one sees it, to just leave it up there, it takes so much courage. Me, like, speaking for myself, that happens so many times. And then I think I have only, like, out of all the poetry posts that I have on Instagram or whatever, like maybe 4 have done well. Like, in my book. Right. So I don't know if that answers it, but I think my biggest piece of advice would be managing expectations and choosing where you want to invest your creativity, really. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. No, that's honestly wonderful. Really, really appreciate that. Can we talk about food real fast?
Yes.
All right, cool. So I'm trying to figure out a way to, like, what's the best way to hear like people's favorite things. So I'm gonna present like a hypothetical situation to you.
Okay.
And this will hopefully be a recurring thing once it does what I want it to do. So let's say, aliens visit this Earth and they visit you and they say, hey, we're, anthropologists and we'd like to learn about food. And we want you to tell us what are the 3 things, whether they're dishes or what have you, drinks can be included as well, that you have experienced that have really resonated with you. And because they're aliens, they have advanced technology. Let's say you used to go to this restaurant growing up as a kid and they were known for something. The restaurant's gone. It's okay. It can still be on the list because they have the technology to recreate that. The only stipulation is that you had to have eaten it yourself. It can't be like, oh, well, there's this certain
fancy place and whatever.
Exactly. You had to have consumed it yourself. And so three items. It could be more. I just picked 3 because, because when I say something like 5 or 7, people are like, the number gets too, intimidating.
Okay. But I'm thinking like, I'm thinking of like, my brain is doing the thing where it's like, because the question I ask my students as like a check-in is like, what's your favorite genre of food? Like your favorite genre. And so I'm trying to think in genres. So like, I would say so far I have 2. My first one is like, I feel like Will is going to roll his eyes if he ever like listens to this. My favorite one is like shabu. Like if you've ever heard shabu shabu, it's like the best thing in the whole world. And I'm embarrassed that it's my favorite thing because you're literally just cooking like meat and water and veggies and water and like that's like what it is.
Yeah. Well, time out. It's more broth than it is water.
Yes, it's like boiling broth and you put like garlic and I'm just saying it the way that Will would describe it because Will is not that fond of it. I've had so many birthdays at Shabu Shabu. Like I've had so many birthdays. Like anytime if someone's like anyone's trying to coax me to do anything, they just have to say shabu. Like if they're like, hey, you want to jump off a building? We'll get shabu later. I'm doing it. Like, I love shabu. So the reason I love shabu is like, it's just so simple. I don't want to say clean, but it just feels healthier. Yeah. And also like, I'm just a pro at it. I've never felt more good at anything in my life. Like, I feel very good at it. And then also, I've learned over the years that shabu is a very multicultural thing. There's Japanese shabu, there's Chinese shabu, there's Korean shabu. Like there's many different forms of it. And that has been like a really exciting world to open up. I've only had Japanese shabu, but I've always like wanted to have other different types a shabu because they look so cool and different. And I love the element. I'm sorry, I could talk about it forever. I love the element of like you really can choose your own adventure with it. Like
Yeah.
you can either like have like a really sweet savory experience, or you could literally burn your butthole. Like
Yeah.
that's literally like my favorite thing. And then the second thing I would say is kebab. I'm a really, really big fan of kebab. Obviously a big staple in Persian food and culture, but it's also a staple in many, many cultures. Many Swana cultures have that. Turkey has something called doner kebab. So good. It's so good. It's just amazing. And so I love like the multi-purposeness of these kinds of foods. I'm trying to think of another one. I can't. I'm trying to like I love sushi. Like I love sushi, but I feel like everyone says they love sushi. I
Right.
love soup dumplings. Like I literally had dumplings for breakfast this morning. Like
Proper. Yeah.
yes, I'm a really big I think during the pandemic, there's like it's still happening, but like during the big part of the pandemic where everything was like shutting down and no one was going out, there's a Din Tai Fung, like near my house, like maybe 15 minutes away. And I was going there at least 2 to 3 times a week for takeout. Like I have tried to make soup dumplings. So yeah, I'm just like a really, really, really big fan of just like all Asian cuisine, but that's a very broad brushstroke.
Yeah.
So like, but I have a tendency to be really, really open to trying all those foods. And then a restaurant that I would tell aliens to go to. I really have to think about this one because like I'm so hungry now and I literally just ate. A restaurant. Okay, so can I say two?
Of course.
Okay, so I'll do the really fancy one and then like the hole in the wall spot.
Yeah.
So there was this restaurant. It's on piece. It's a hotel. I think it's like the Montage. It's some fancy shit. But they have like a hotel and then there's like a restaurant. And we went there for my mom's 60th. I don't want to age her, but a little bit ago. And then it was like a 4 or 5 course meal that was just decadent. It was like art. I love meals that feel like art. And so it was my whole family, like my brother, my sister, my dad, me, my mom, and we all had like just these amazing 5 course meals that were just way overpriced, but so good. And then the hole in the wall spot that I really like is in Tustin. And this was the first one that came to mind because it's like a childhood spot that's like my favorite. It's called Nana Kebab. Naan is bread and kebab is kebab. And it just has it's all Persian food. It's just like traditional, just like you get this just big plate of rice and chicken, and then like you get kebab if you want. And the best part of it is there's two of the best parts aren't even the main dish. It's the salad. The salad is the money. Like it's the money. My mom's tried to recreate the dressing for years now, for like at least 15 years, and has yet to like master what the dressing is. It's so good. I'm like salivating just thinking about it. And then they have like a really good tadig, which tadig is like crispy rice, and they put like stew on it. Oh,
Damn.
It's so good. Don't even I told you I'm like a slut for food. I love food. I'll eat anything. Like people are like, any dietary restrictions? I'm like, no, like give me all of it. But yeah, I would say nane kebab is like my first choice for aliens. You gotta know the world that way.
Yeah. That's a pretty fire list.
Okay. I just felt like I was just saying, I always get concerned because I'm like saying a lot, but like I could go off about this.
No, it's great. You're in the right place for that. There's this, if I can make a recommendation for you,
do it.
It's not entirely like it's not entirely hot pot style in which you cook your food yourself. Yeah. But there's this franchise called Boiling Point that's Taiwanese.
I need to write this down.
Yeah.
But yeah, go for it.
Okay. So they just give it. They have a menu, and so they give you everything already in this bowl that's boiling. So it's more or less cooking in front of you. So there is no like the hot pot or shabu thing where you like cook it in and then eat it. It's just all right there. Everyone gets their own individual thing. And then of course they have the sauces on the side, and you have either a bowl of rice or noodles that you eat with it. But boiling point is phenomenal.
I feel like I've driven past like one or two of them.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
I like. Oh yeah, we should go sometime. I'm down.
I'm so down. Yeah. It's
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it hits the same feeling of like I had this like soupy, hearty type of thing, and because you're seeing everything cook right in front of you, there is this like lightness, and they have like a variety. They have like a vegetarian one and a lamb one and like a super spicy one, or whatever. But
yeah, I love soups. That's like a big genre of food that I love. Like I love pho. I love ramen. I love like all different types of soups. And thankfully, I'm very good at making soup too. So it's not just like I have to always go out. Like if I'm really in the mood for a soup at like 3 a.m, which happens more often than I'm proud to say, it'll like I can like whip up something nice and quick if I have some broth on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love soup. So that sounds amazing. I'm like so excited. This is the best like conversation like I ever had on like a podcast, because it's just food is like the soul. So yeah, that makes me happy.
My brother, my older brother lives up in Seattle, and I like visited him. Excuse me. I think in like 2018. 2018, just to spend like that a quality time with him, because we had always seen each other. There's a 13-year age difference between him and I. So he went off to college, would come home like, sometimes on the weekends. Once he graduate college, he moved to Washington for his job. He's been there ever since. So anytime, I'd see him, and my sister, who's 9 years older than me, who's always around like other family, whether it's our parents or uncle, aunts, things like that.
Yeah.
So as I'm getting older, we're all collectively getting older, and we're trying to have more of that time to together. But anyways, I took this solo trip to spend time with him, and hung out with him and his wife, my sister-in-law, and my brother and I, we went to a Mariners game, which is the baseball team up there. And so we went in there, and I saw a Din Tai Fung in the baseball stadium. And deep inside my heart, my mom is from Taiwan. So deep inside my heart, there's this little Taiwanese boy just waving this Taiwanese flag, just being like, "We did it. We did it," because we were like, we just have to see it, so you walk over, and it's like, it's in a stadium, so it's like stadium prices, so it's like milk teas are like $16, and like hot dumplings are, you know what I mean, and I was so happy to see that it was. We didn't get it because we were like, we can get this cheaper, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, but you like that they're like overcharging other people.
Yeah, you're like, get these moves, because like when it comes to like our food, right? The food of our people, right? Asia and like the Middle Eastern fry is always seen as like cheap and easy. You know what I mean? Like it's not, Japan. I have this conversation with my girlfriend, because her parents are from Japan, immigrated here, right? And so we talk about like Japan kind of made it, because it's like everyone, when they think about Japanese food, right, has this sense of like, oh, it's so like, elegant and expensive and like classy. Like the feelings associated with like sushi and Japanese food is completely different to like Chinese food, Thai food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? We can also get into that as well. But anyways, it was just so cool to
No,
see.
I
You know what I
totally
mean?
get that. It's like so satisfying because like I mean with Persian food, it's always like a hole in the wall spot.
Exactly.
And it's always like it's like too much food for your own good. Like, and it takes like so much time to make too.
Yeah.
So that's it's like made in bulk. But it's also like, I mean, I've always wanted like a really, really high end, like expensive Persian restaurant.
Yeah.
I think the closest I've ever come to feeling that level of satisfaction was like right by like because where I live, it's like one of like the hubs for Iranians. Like we have an Iranian grocery, we have like two Iranian grocery stores nearby. We have like a bunch of Iranian restaurants. But the thing that was like the moment where I was like, oh, like we made it was they opened like an ice cream shop like in Irvine right here that serves Persian ice cream like out of like the containers, like the thing, like, and I've never seen that before.
Wow.
And it was like, I could cry just even thinking about it. Like, I'm a big crier. So, like, even thinking about it makes me want to cry because it's so special. You feel like, I don't know if like maybe this is just me thing, like, you feel like the world has never treated you as normal. Like, the world around you treats you as this, like a thing that doesn't belong or like a hole in the wall spot or something that's cheap or whatever made in bulk. We're like here and there's nothing wrong with that, but to see that it was like validated
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
ice cream containers that usually hold vanilla and there's like this pistachio saffron ice cream like with rose
Yeah.
water
Yeah. Yeah. With the rose. Yeah.
yeah, it just was and there's a line out the door for it and then like and this area has like this little on like I don't know, it's like this outdoor like patio-y area and has like tables and everything and and in that area there's a Persian restaurant next to it and they hand out tea for free because we're Persian and that's what we do. And so everyone's like sitting outside and drinking tea in the summer sky and like they're having like ice cream from this ice cream shop that carries like a bunch of Iranian ice cream. And I was like, we made it. I was like, we made it. So I mean, I get it. I haven't hit that point where like Persian food is overpriced yet, but I'm waiting for the day because I feel like it's like Persian food's very much a secret hit. Like no one really knows. Like I feel like not many people know about it or they do, but it's like just they go for lunch. But I'm waiting for that like 5-star, like $100 meal that like white people have to pay for.
Yeah. Yeah, I love seeing a line at Din Tai Fung. It just makes me like so happy. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, no, isn't that wild? I wonder what that is. Like I wonder why that's like a feeling because when I see the line go out for like Persian ice cream,
you just get so happy, right?
It's so satisfying.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's good. I know it's good. I knew it was good before it was cool. Like
because I think like part of it, and this is something I think I shouldn't strive for in life, right? But it's the acknowledgement and respect from like white America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you do see it, you're like, aha, like, we've been like
it's great, but it's also like sad.
Right.
Yeah, it's great, but it's also very sad.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's good. I always feel like, that to understand someone's culture, you don't have to like, I mean, you could read a book or watch a documentary, but if you just go to one of these hole in the wall restaurants, you will like understand. And I think that understanding is, we're not that different as like people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know if you've ever heard of the term soft power.
Yes.
Like I think about it like it is like when you go to that restaurant, like that's basically what like the food and culture of like people of color kind of like in the world and in like especially America, that's like their influence of soft power. Like the reason, like I don't know, I think like it's important that those beacons are here, not just like as influence, but it sucks that we have to continually try to humanize ourselves for who, But having the food there is like it at least for it is in an effort to humanize ourselves, which is like so stupid. It just makes me so mad. It's just like fight me to the death. Like I hate it, but yeah, it's because it's like you're right. In America, we constantly have to like humanize and justify ourselves for white people. Where like I think perhaps the bigger pursuit is, you know, uniting our communities and ourselves, like, and seeing the value inherent in ourselves. But it's so hard when like just everywhere in the place that you live and you breathe is like telling you that you are not worthy, that you are not normal, or that you are not accepted. I think that's like a huge thing. And that's what, like, going back to me growing up and seeing all these like churches everywhere, and like a lot of like super rich people, and like just all these nice clothes and these nice things, and the big it made me feel like, oh, I would not be accepted here. I don't even know how to even access this. Like it definitely it creates like such a, yeah. So I think it's just like, and I think we're seeing that culturally, that shift from like, oh, we need to be accepted and humanized, to like, oh, we just need to accept and humanize ourselves. There, I mean, this is like such a tangent, but like like I don't know if you've read my book, but I've been through some things. There have been some tough things that have happened in my life. And like anytime I would talk about these like hard things, I would you know, I would be like, oh, I don't really know what happened in this moment, or I don't know. And in the process, and I promise I'm getting somewhere, but like I realized that like there was this moment I was like, I was processing like a certain experience that I had, and I realized like, oh, in that moment I was afraid. And I didn't even realize that I was afraid. Like I didn't even realize I felt fear in that moment. And then the moment I realized I was scared in that moment, like as like me now, looking at me then, saying like, oh, I was scared. This me now was able to give so much compassion to that person in that moment. Like I had stopped giving myself compassion. I was like, oh, like, you know, no one's gonna believe you. Like you put yourself in the situation. Like you're so stupid. Blah 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 blah. Like there's something about you that is like a magnet to this thing. But once I realized like in this moment I was scared, I like very much humanized myself. I very much like saw this space of like self-compassion, and it made space for an immeasurable level of healing. Like I can't even explain to you, because I don't know about you, maybe this is like a me thing, but like I never gave myself permission to accept that I can be scared. You know what I mean? So like I'd never thought I felt that feeling before. I never even realized what scared looked or felt like, you know, because you don't think like that. But the moment I realized that, I was like, oh wow, like so in a similar kind of emotional texture, it's the same thing. It's just having compassion for yourself, so that you are like finding that compassion for yourself in whatever way you can, so you can fucking live. Like it's just to live your life. Like because like when I kind of evaluated like the world around me, like growing up, and just evaluating, I don't know, just kind of all the stuff that was kind of getting in the way, and being like, well, yeah, of course I would have a hard time with this. Of course I didn't know how to do this. Of course this was like, I didn't have those things. I was like, okay, it wasn't my fault. This isn't my fault, right? Like my parents, they went to college a long time ago. The college system now, very different. Of course, they wouldn't have known how to do it. They didn't know all those resources that all the rich kids had, with all tutors and all these things and whatever. Like, so for me, it was like, oh, of course I didn't know these things. And having that compassion, I was like, it just kind of, you take a lot of weight off yourself, because it's not your fault. I don't know if that like kind of brings it full circle in a way, but it was very much like, people talk about self-compassion as like very hippie woo-woo, like love yourself. It's gonna be fine. Like, I love you. Like, whatever. But it's very much a very tangible thing, you know?
Yes.
Like it's a tangible thing, and it does take a lot of work.
Mm.
You know, it
Mhm.
took a lot of work.
Wow. That's awesome.
Full circle.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. It's this so in Buddhism, right? There's this, at least in form Buddhism I practice, there's this concept called human revolution, where it's by the process that in which we change, our environment changes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, because like we can always blame others, right? Like, oh, I'm so great, but why does you know, my relationships always end in this way, or my boss doesn't appreciate me, like it's because there's something inherently within ourselves, right? That feels that way about ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's this process of really almost like echoing what you said earlier about like the poetry and writing thing. It's about being realistic about what you're not necessarily realistic, but just honest about what you're experiencing, and
Yeah.
this process of truly understanding your experiences and what you've gone through, and how you can ultimately like allow that to be a part of who you are, instead of trying to. I think, at least for me, that the tendency is, oh, we just won't acknowledge or like look at that, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh yeah.
um but that's only stopping me from being who I really want to be for the people that I care about, so.
Oh yeah. No, I think this is like something I'm definitely gonna, my brain's always like, I'm gonna write about this thing because it's so much, like, because it's way, way deeper. But I was talking to a group of students for an editing workshop, and they're like, how do you know when like something is perfect? Which is something I think we all, as like creatives or creators, which I think everyone's a creative, does. It's like, when is this done? When is this perfect? When am I gonna like make it? And something that I told them is like, create or perfection is super overrated, and it's not achievable. It's just not. Like, you're gonna have that in your brain. Like when I was trying to release this workshop thing, I was like, I want everything to be perfect. Very much wasn't. Stuff fell apart, stuff didn't work out. But something that is even better than being creative, and this was like something that who was it that taught me this? I don't remember, but it was one of my mentors who taught me this, who said, it was Alicia Wise. It was Alicia. And Alicia said, it might, like, something might not be done or it might not be ready, but it takes so much courage to release it anyways. It takes so much courage to just try. And speaking to what you said about being honest with yourself, to know, like, to see everything, to see that you're scared, right, to see that you don't know if it's going to do well, to see all these things, and have the courage to do it anyways, despite whatever imperfections you may face or imperfections the project may have, is, I think, probably it in my opinion is way more valuable than perfection. I think seeing like an artist or a creator have the courage to put something out is way better than someone being like, oh, this is perfect. Like, I'm glad that it's perfect, but also like it's so unattainable. My book coming out into the world, there were parts of it that I felt were imperfect, but when it came out, I actually find the thing perfect now because of how imperfect it is, because of the courage it took for me to like put it out there. If that makes sense. So I think it's very much the same way with any creative endeavor or just like life endeavor. Like, I looked at that situation in my life and I was like, oh, I was scared. Seeing that I was scared and kind of like having the courage to voice it, having the courage to process it, having the courage to still take risks in life despite it is, I think, a way better the decision than to be like, I need to be fully healed from this experience. And like, I need to be like my best self. Like, it's just it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of courage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for everything that you shared and yeah, all of your insight. If it's okay, I'll start like transitioning us out of this episode because I feel like we could just go on and on and on.
We really could. I'm holding you to the boiling pot. I'm holding you to it.
Yeah. No, it'll happen. Pending Delta variant, all that good stuff.
I know. Oh my God.
Yeah. It'll happen
in like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. But it'll be great. You know what I mean?
It'll be great. It'll be great.
What's another 2-3 years, for us?
We'll see.
Easy.
We have 8 years under our belt. It's
I
fine.
know. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to like follow you and like keep track of, please share your, socials and website. Yeah. The plugs.
I have an Instagram. It's OHOH Sheila with 2 A's. So OHOHSHEILAA. So OO Sheila with 2 A's. That's my main spot. I do have a TikTok. I don't remember the name. It's there. It's a great promo. And I have a website. It's SheilaJSadr.com. You can follow me there and just see my stuff. I'm mainly on Instagram though.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I have a slight disdain for the social medias, but I also have a Facebook and I have a book. It's out. You can find it in Barnes and Noble, Not a Cult, and the Devil Incarnate itself, Amazon. So it's all there. It's called Birthday Girl.
Awesome. All of that will be in the episode, description and all that good stuff. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a great time.
I did. It was so fun.
Okay, good. Good. This won't be like a one and done thing. We'll have to get you back on. And actually, I had another episode with a wonderful friend of mine, Julissa, that I met through college. And she's also a big fan of yours. And so her episode hasn't been released yet because I wanted to get this episode out first, right? Anyways, after we stopped hitting recording with her, she's also a writer and poet, and we did a one-man show together. I was the man in the one-man show, and she wrote it. Anyways, I said like, hey, let's do an episode between like the three of us. Let me just get the one, the episode with you.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. And then she was like super,
oh my God.
Yeah, they were super happy about it. Yeah. So anyways, expect that out at some point. I'll
let me know. I'm more than happy. I love questions. Like I'm a slut for food. I'm a slut for questions. I love questions. So
yeah.
I'm all about talking and just like connecting, especially because we haven't seen each other in so long and we've just been kind of in each other's orbit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice to connect. I like it.
Yeah. And I think the real power, like you said, the community comes from, I think having, I'm just so excited having like the three of us in one room at the same time talking about.
Feels powerful.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll just tease that, but for the, indefinite future. But I guess I should do my outro. Anyways, thanks everyone for listening to today's episode of the podcast. You can listen to the podcast again on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud under the Christopher Yu podcast. You can also check out my Instagram at Christopher J U. I believe my TikTok is under at Christopher J U. If you want to see the video recording of this, so basically just the video of this recording that we have, you can check it out on my YouTube, which is also under at Christopher J U. On my YouTube, you also find highlights from my Twitch stream. If you want to check me out on Twitch, it's under Twin Turbro, TWINTURBRO. So that's the only thing not under Christopher Yu. Christopher J U. Anyways, all right. Thank you again, Sheila. Yay!
Thank you.
And again, for everyone listening, please take care of yourselves. And if you can, someone else as well. Bye-bye.